All right, so we had a great interview with Jazz, and now we've got a driver on the scene that I honestly don't know who she is. Marianna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So you've decided just to jump into this conversation. I honestly don't know who you are. Can you introduce yourself, I guess, to the harness racing world?
My name's Marianna Monaco. I'm originally from Yonkers, New York. I spent most of my childhood growing up in the grandstands at New York, at Yonkers, with my parents. My dad was involved. He owned a bunch of horses before I was born, and then he had a few when I was younger, and then growing up, he kind of got out of the owning side of the business, and he would just bring me up to the grandstands, and we would watch races, and my mom, we would make it our nightly thing. After dinner, we'd go up, watch races. My godfather, he trained horses, and his dad actually had a breeding farm, and it just kind of seems like it, I went with the flow and was always at the track, enjoyed being there.
So let me just cut in. So you're second generation from your father owning, but you had a godfather whose father had a breeding farm. Does that explain your colors? Because everybody's trying to figure out your colors. We know the colors, but how does it relate to who you are? And is it that godfather's father's breeding farm, or is that a different relationship?
No, it's a different relationship. My colors, I always liked the nautical star. I have the nautical stars on my colors, but growing up at Yonkers, I always looked up to Stefan Bouchard, and, his colors were green and white, and he had piping that was red. And, growing up, I always looked up to him, and he was kind of the driver that I followed, always being at Yonkers. And so I thought that, the red and green would be unique, and I'm also Italian, so the Italian flag, green, white, and red, and that's kind of how it all went along, and that's how I got my colors.
Okay, so how many horses do you have in your barn right now?
Right now I'm only training one. I own 3. The other 2 are currently with Ashley Eldred.
Are they racing, or are they turned out, or?
The 2, one, he's been racing every week. The other, he raced Friday night, but he's most likely going to get some time off and get him happy, put some weight on him, and some maintenance to him, and hopefully get him back to the races soon and back to himself.
But then you also drive, and that's what we're going to predominantly talk about today. What, I guess, got you started driving? I mean, you were mentioning family and the godfather and his father at the breeding farm. Were you working specifically with somebody growing up, and then you got your P license? Do you currently have a P license? Do you have an A license?
I currently have a P license. We're just waiting for the paperwork to be sent into the USTA for my A license. The Harness Association has to send in a letter. This way the USTA can approve it. So I have all of my P drives, satisfactory drives, and enough drives to get my A. We're just waiting on the USTA to approve the A license.
Well, how many drives has it taken you as a P license driver to get to this point?
I believe I was first told I can get the A license. I believe it was 40 or so drives. I was driving a bunch up at Monticello, and the judge up there had called me in and said that I can get my A license. So now I'm not sure how many drives I have. I still have my P because we're just waiting on that to go through. But it was quite a few. Later on, it seemed like, I was driving 2, 3, 4 horses a week, and the starts just, started piling on. Now, I'm driving 1 or 2 a week. The GSY and the trot that they have at Yonkers, the series.
I see that. You were in the Billings last week. You came in third with a hot summer night. You want to talk about that drive? Obviously, did you come first up, or?
No, we, out of the gate, Todd always tells me, just, watch him in the turn, that first turn, it comes up quick, and he kind of pulled me out of the gate, but I knew, on the inside we had Dave Offenberg and Heckoff, and I knew I wouldn't get to the lead, so I kind of just tried to settle him in, and the hole was closed up when we were falling down to the rails, so I just sat on him, got him relaxed, and let him trot. We were parked the whole mile. Matt Zurbella was also parked, and at the half, I let him trot on a little bit, and then Zurbella made a break, and we went 3 wide around him, and he raced a big mile. Once we got to 3/4, I put him back on the rail, let him kind of trot home, and he just got beat, but it was a good mile for him considering, we were out the whole way. Unfortunately, he doesn't fit the NADA series that's starting up this Thursday, so hopefully in a few weeks we get some money off of his card and he can fit that. And he's a good horse for that. He's an old war horse and trots perfect, no trotting hobbles, and he's a really nice horse to sit behind, and I've driven him 3 times and he's won 2 of the 3 starts, so it's been a joy driving for the Buter family and hot summer night.
Do you prefer the trotters over the pacers? I mean, what's your preference driving? Either or, both?
Either or, but if I had to pick between the two, not your typical amateur driver, I would rather drive a pacer than a trotter. Just a personal preference. I've sat behind a lot of pacers, even going training miles most times. The barn was full of pacers, so it was usually a pacer that I was sitting behind.
So, like Powerful Pulse just won a couple days ago. I mean, will you drive her every once in a while? I mean, she's obviously your old war horse in the barn, obviously helps pay the bills, makes things happen.
Yeah, that was actually I owned her a year and a half ago. She was claimed off of me, and the guy who had claimed her off of me called me and asked if I wanted to buy her, and, I just asked him to give me some time, and not too long after, a guy had called that he had her, and that he had received a few phone calls saying to make sure that, I got that horse and that I had her, and she meant something to me. So I've only had her now again. That was her 4th start with me. If you look at her line, she was getting sour, coming first up, going 3 deep, and in with better horses. So I had bought her, and it's my 4th start with her. I want to drive her, but I want to make sure she's back to her old self and, happy. And Joe's done a great job with her down at Freehold. 2 starts ago, she was challenged the whole mile, and that was actually the first start that I had her where I said to myself, I think she's ready. She's ready to race. So Joe, gave her 2 good drives, and maybe I'll drive her, if she draws the outside. But right now the goal is to kind of try and make a little bit of money with her, and then maybe I'll drive her a couple starts myself.
Do you want to talk about some more of these pictures that we have of you driving, some of these horses? Any preferred horses over the years? I mean, obviously Powerful Pulse you have back right now, but, any barn favorites, or you want to talk about any of your first wins?
My first win at the Meadowlands was with Lear Steelster. I remember the horse when Jimmy Nickerson had him at the Meadowlands, and I don't remember if he was in a 10 or 12-5 claimer, and I had warmed him up that night. I'm like, this seems like a really nice horse, and then he was a hot commodity in the claiming box, and he got up, I believe, into the 20 claimers over at Yonkers. Vinny Fusco had him. And then COVID had hit, and the owner of, Vinny had gotten sick and passed away. And the owner had pulled the horse, sent it up to the Huckabones, and he was racing at Vernon, I believe, a few starts. And then he came back to Jersey, and Vincent Stallworth had him, who worked for Vinny Fusco, and, his track master was low enough, so he fit the class, and I was looking for drives, and he put them in, and, we sat 10th on the rail, and we really didn't know what to expect. It was his first start with them since he had come down from Vernon, and I believe we were third or fourth over, and turning for at 3/4, I knew, you sit behind a horse and you know what you have in your hands, and I knew turning for home that I had a good horse. And I drove him a couple weeks, and then they had changed the conditions of the class for that amateur, so he no longer fit it. And he kind of went up the ranks, and I believe recently he was sold, and I believe he raced the other night at the Meadowlands. But he's just a nice horse, to sit behind and drive. Also drove Walks of Life, who is also an old war horse, has some soundness issues, but the ones that have those issues are usually the ones that have the biggest hearts, and they want to go, they want to take forward steps, and it's nice to sit behind horses like that. Other than that,
what's it like? I mean, not getting into the gender issue, but what's it like being a woman who's got hands? What's it like? You're an up and coming driver. People are noticing you, and you're going to break into the regular circuit. You're going to start driving regularly, aren't you?
I don't know. I wouldn't say I have hands. I sit behind nice horses, and people say, "Oh, that was a great drive," and I'll take credit for it. But at the same time, the work that's put in throughout the week in the barn, the trainers have to get credit too. Also, the caretakers that rub on these horses and do a great job with them. I always say, it's what you have between the two shafts. It's not always the driver's hand. So I'll take credit, but I believe
Well, is it about following instructions? Is that what it's about? If you follow the instructions of the trainer, they're entrusting you every week. You build that relationship. They give you other horses. Is that how it's done?
Yeah, you build relationships with the trainers, and it's always, nice when they can give you instructions, but also can give you feedback after the race, and, what the horse has done throughout the week, and how they've done things differently, after a start. And it's nice when you can give them feedback as well, and they take it into consideration and make some changes. It's nice when that horse comes back the following week and, is better. But then at the same time, it's nice when, they can tell you, well, there was an issue, that's why the horse wasn't any good. We scoped him, we took blood.
But are you giving rigging advice? Are you coming off a horse and saying, hey, put this head pole on, or hey, change this, or open up the, hobbles this so much? Are you saying that back to the trainers as a driver, as a P driver getting an A license? People...
Not as much. I feel like when you have a good relationship with those trainers you drive for, it's a lot easier to get off and say, I think this, or, try to make this change. And sometimes it's not so easy. There's trainers who, they kind of take it with a grain of salt and just go on about.
They know the horses.
Yes.
That's what it is. You're just first time taking a look, saying, hey,
exactly.
I think this. They just, like you said, they take it into consideration. So
yeah. So, like I said, most of my drives are generally for the same trainers. So it's nice when you can get off and you can talk about it and try and come up with a plan for those horses.
What is your plan? What's the plan now? Are you going to stick at Yonkers, the Meds? Are you going to drive at Freehold? What's your next step? You're going to get this A license, obviously. You're going to be approved. Your name's going to be out there. People are going to see you driving. What's the plan?
I think I'm going to stick with the amateurs, give it the rest of the year and see where it takes me. And, I have two horses that fit the Pace series, and I've driven both of them. So even if I end up driving them in overnight races, I'm not really sure if, I want to become a regular driver or if I would get the stock to become a regular driver, but, you know, especially like you said, being a female and driving, you don't see it all too often where, you know, on the driving side, they can make careers out of it and, you know, their livelihoods it's a lot harder for a female, you know, even on the training side, but I have faith and, you know, there's a lot of female trainers and drivers that are up and coming and that have been in the industry, and you're starting to see a lot more, you know, females involved on the training and driving side, which gives a lot of hope for.
So you've mentioned, you know, obviously your father is obviously who's helped you get to, you know, the interest, and it's in your blood, obviously, and some other people that have, you know, been, I guess, stepping stones and what have you. Is there anybody else you want to give a shout out to in the industry that's helped you throughout the years?
I mean, I have a very big fan group, you know, fan base. I get text messages all the time, you know, support. In the last few years, you know, after college, Rick Dane, Monica, you know, Banca, Renee Allard, you know, I was there for him at Yonkers every night, sitting behind all of his horses, going to the farm. Whenever he needed me, I would train, you know, get in the bike and go training trips in the bike with his horses, you know, sitting behind nice horses like that. And there definitely is way too many people to, you know, give credit where it's due. Recently, I've built a good relationship with Ashley Eldred, and, you know, she's supported me the past, I don't know how many months, giving me drives, you know, and just input on, you know, the horse I have here, the ones that she has for me, and, like, I just feel like it's a learning process, and I have a lot of people in my corner who are, you know, trying to help me get better at what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do. My parents, my siblings, my girlfriend, you know, just there's a lot of people out there, and you don't realize it until you sit down, you know, at the end of the day, and you go through those messages, those comments, and you see, like, how many people are behind you and are helping you and want to see you succeed. So it's a great feeling.
Well, we're going to get your colors out there and get your name out there, and it's Marianna Monaco, and you're based
Marianna Monaco,
Marianna,
New York.
Sorry. You're based out of New York. You're going to be out on the East Coast, and it's just a name to watch. So we wish you the best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.